Before last week, Seattle Seahawks cornerback Richard Sherman was known for a few things to those that knew him. He was known as one of the best, arguably the best, at his position, NFL cornerback. He was known for his incredible life story. It took him from Compton to graduating high school with a 4.2 GPA to Stanford University and finally the NFL. He was also known for his trash talk, and it's that last part that's made him a household name because of this 25 seconds last week.
Joe, thank you so much. Richard, let me ask you the final play. Take me through it.
Well, I'm the best corner in the game. When you try me with a sorry receiver like Crabtree, that's the result you're going to get. Don't you ever talk about me.
Who was talking about you?
Crabtree, don't you open your mouth about the best. Or I'm going to shut it for you real quick. LOB.
All right, and Joe, back over to you.
Since then, this 25-year-old has found himself in the updraft of a full multi-platform media firestorm. There was unbelievable invective unleashed on social media where Sherman was called classless or worse, like Richard Sherman's an ignorant ape, and someone needs to introduce Richard Sherman to George Zimmerman. The next day, the word thug was said 625 times on TV, which is more often than any other day in the last 3 years, according to IQ Media, a research company that tracks these kinds of things. Let's face it, there's a tonal limitation placed upon the speech of athletes, particularly brash young black men in the public eye. And if it's not adhered to, they become easy targets for backlash politics. But those same folks leading the backlash have succeeded in making Richard Sherman the most talked about athlete in America. His story is the story people are talking about this week leading up to the most watched television event in the country, Sunday Super Bowl. In fact, the Super Bowl has been billed as Peyton Manning versus Richard Sherman. But Richard Sherman is a clever guy, far too clever to let himself be turned into a one-dimensional cartoon villain, or in the words of Sports Illustrated, to take the bait. In fact, as I discovered when I got a chance to sit down with him today face-to-face, number 25 is a much, much more complex and fascinating man than those 25 seconds showcased. So this is the big debate right now. After the last game, after the NFL Films tape came out in which you're mic'd, and you make the play, you celebrate for a moment, you run up to Crabtree, and you're like, heck of a game, heck of a game. And the big debate in my office and every office is, are you taunting him in that moment? Is that a good faith, like, hey, hell of a game? Or do you realize you're, like, putting it in its face?
I mean, so the game's going to end in 22 seconds. Is it taunting then? You know what I mean? It's one of those things where the game was going to be over in 22 seconds. You know, if the guys walks to the locker room, I don't get a chance to say good game. So I guess it's as good natured as you can do in a football game. You know, I was going to give the guy a handshake before, you know, his season's over, their season's over. He's heading to the locker room. It was a great game. It was great.
So in that moment when you're running over him, you're thinking in your head, like, I want to just give him a quick pound and be like, hey.
And be like, hey, man, that was great. You battled. We battled today. Great job. And
then you were surprised when he gave you.
Yeah, I was surprised because I thought, I mean, if he didn't want to shake, all he had to do was just wave it off, and I would have turned around and went and celebrated with my teammates. And, you know, so I was a little surprised by the push.
Is that what set you off?
No. I mean, what set me off was a lot of other factors, I guess.
Like,
I mean, you know, it's a competitive game. It's passion. Passion set me off. You know, making a big play set me off. Just being in the moment.
Have you watched that? Have you watched the clip of yourself in the Aaron Andrews?
I've seen it.
When you look at it, what's your reaction when you watch it or when you see it?
I mean, it looks fine to me. I mean, it really does. I don't think too much of it. You know, I don't take too much of it. I mean, it's after a game. Big play made, you're gonna get a big reaction.
I thought it was really interesting the other day when you're talking about thugs, and one of the things you said, aside from the first part of the comment, was like, I know thugs. And if you talk to thugs, I'm the furthest thing from a thug. I was curious, like, what do you mean by that? What's your definition of it?
Well, I mean, the dictionary's definition, Webster's definition of it is a criminal, is a criminal, and I'm far from a criminal. You can check my record; it's pretty clean. And I think people confuse it, you know, with the way they use it, and they're a little confused. But I think people are trying to use it, like I said before, as a substitute for the N-word. It's an accepted way to say it. People aren't using it like I'm a criminal, because obviously I didn't do anything criminal in that sphere. I didn't do anything criminal. I didn't break any laws, break any rules. And they said I'm classless and all this, that, and the other. But the way they were using the word took it out of context. They took it out of its true definition, true meaning.
One of the things that's happened in response to all that is people then are getting a bio of you. I mean, you know, most NFL players are kind of anonymous, right? I mean, aside from quarterbacks that we see on endorsement deals, is people behind helmets making plays, right?
Exactly.
And most Americans didn't know who Richard Sherman was 2 weeks ago, frankly. I mean, the people in Seattle did, and people that had you on their, you know, on their fantasy team did, because everyone stopped throwing to you.
Yeah.
But like, what do you want people to? If people have the chance to get the second bite at the apple of who Richard Sherman is, like, what's the bio you want them to know?
Well, I want them to know about, you know, the journey that I took from Compton, you know, California, Watts, California, to Stanford, the trials and tribulations, the things I do off the field to help the community, to help kids, to try to get kids to understand that furthering your education is a path to accomplishing goals, to being everything you can be, being as powerful as a person as you can be, to really, really reaching the potential, and understanding that you're not boxed in by the neighborhood you're brought up in, by the circumstances that you're raised in, and really trying to be an inspiration for kids. And it's something I felt like I needed as a young kid, and I would love to have, to just see somebody who came from humble beginnings, came from where I came from, to make it to where they are now. I would have loved to hear that story and see that, and I'm sure it would have inspired me as a little kid. So I'm trying to do as much as I can to inspire them. Just kids seeing that people from your neighborhood are going to the next level. They're taking the next step, and then they're getting their degrees. So it's possible. It's totally plausible for you to think, oh man, I can go to Dominguez High School, then graduate from there, go on to college, graduate from there, and potentially make it to the NFL, or potentially take a different career path.
If you weren't, you were just talking about checking your Scott trade and your Tesla stock. If you were not a corner, if all this ended tomorrow for some reason or another, what would you want to be doing out there?
Well, I think I'd still want to be involved in football. I think I'd want to be coaching or teaching, because I think I have too much knowledge of the game, and it's been such a blessing to be able to show your talents and show your skills. But I think I have more to give to the kids that are playing now, you know, showing them the fundamentals, helping them understand the game for what it really is, and also getting into the financial sphere a little bit.
One of the things I've noticed in people talking about you is that one side of it is people calling you a thug, and then people run in and they say, oh, but he's got a Stanford degree. And it feels like sometimes the subtext is as like, he's one of the good ones. Like, don't worry, he's got a Stanford degree. Like, how do you respond to that, the way that degree and the fact that you were a good student is being marshaled in the way people talk about it?
Well, I think that's, you know, that's showing some of the closed-mindedness of society, and how they want to label people. They want to, you know, feel like there's black and white, that it's either this category or this category. There's no middle ground. And I think I encompass just about every part of both. You know, I was totally raised in Compton. I totally was there. You know, I might not fit in the best, but I was there. That's where I'm from. And I also went to Stanford and got my education, succeeded in that way. And I'm also in the NFL and part of that fraternity. And it's so many things that go into a person that you know, stop trying to label people, is what I can say. I mean, I guess the best label for myself, I'm a pragmatist. You know, I'm a guy who believes that my reality is the reality of the world, and I do my best to make it that way.
Barack Obama calls himself a pragmatist, too.
Yeah.
Someone who, I think, lived in a lot of different worlds as well.
Yes, he did.
When you showed up that first day at Stanford, were you like, where the hell am I? Or were you like, this is I like it?
Combination of both. Because where I'm from, there isn't a lot of culture, there isn't a lot of diversity in Compton. You know, you have your Hispanics, you have some Polynesians, and you have blacks, and that's really all the mix in the city. And then you get to Stanford, and you have different kind of Asians, you have South Africans, East Africans, you have European, you have, you know, Canadians, you have so many different nations, so many different cultures, so many different people coming together in one spot that I was kind of shocked at it, you know, shocked at the way they're talking, the conversations, the dialogue, the debates that are going on, the intelligence, you know, you can actually be yourself. You can actually go there and read in the library and not be bothered. So it's kind of a culture shock. A kid from Compton who hadn't seen too much outside the city, to tell you the truth.
More of my interview with Richard Sherman up next. Stick around.
Who are you picking for the Super Bowl?
I think Denver. You know, everybody is such a Manning fan, and that loudmouth from Seattle sort of epitomizes the Seattle team to me.
I asked Richard Sherman what he thought of Senator John McCain's comments. I also asked him what he had to say about Compton's other shining star, Kendrick Lamar. Just a couple of things we discussed in the second half of my interview. There's this, Senator John McCain had this quote the other day, which I'm just quoting because he said it, but a lot of people I feel like have this feeling that, you know, everybody's such a Manning fan, that loudmouth from Seattle sort of epitomizes the Seattle team to me. Do you feel like the story that's getting built in the run-up to the game is like Peyton Manning is the hero and Richard Sherman is the villain, right? Like it's like that's the good guy and that's the bad guy. You're the bad guy.
I don't see it that way. I mean, maybe in his circle, but I'm sure he said worse than that. And I think I try not to judge people off what they say or what they do. You know, his opinion is what it is, and he's entitled to it. But I don't think it's good guys versus bad guys because we have way too many good guys on our team. You got Russell Wilson versus Peyton Manning.
Yeah.
And I think anytime you label Russell Wilson a villain, you're wrong. You're definitely wrong. Anytime if he's the leader of the villains, you know, what are you really saying? And I think that people are just trying to pass judgment, trying to make themselves comfortable with the situation, and you know, make themselves understand that, oh, this guy's the bad guy. You know, I can just close that story, and they don't want to sit there and go and do research, because if you did the research and you look and you try to figure out what I did off the field, you figure out I'm trying to, you know, do as much as I can to make the world a better place, as much as I can to help as many people as I can, and that my teammates love me because I'm not a selfish player. I'm not a selfish person. I'm not a me guy. I'm a total team guy, and it got caught up in a moment, and I'm sure he's gotten caught up in a moment before. But I mean, if everybody labeled him off of a soundbite, then I'm sure everybody have a different view of him.
In terms of Senator John McCain, it's true. Actually, he has gotten caught up in the moment. Do you watch Kendrick Lamar last night? I didn't
get a chance to. I was watching the Pro Bowl.
But he is you and he are Compton's most famous right now.
The Compton's finest right now. Yeah, he's a great talent.
The Richie Incognito situation. You know, someone was on my show the other night. We were talking about what went on, people's reaction to the use of this word thug. Do you feel like? I'm just curious what you thought of the fallout of that situation. Here's someone who was identified as, in some ways, as kind of a villain also. It seemed to me like what he did behaviorally was much more objectionable than being caught up in the moment. But how did you respond to that?
Objectively, I mean, like I said, I try not to pass judgment on anybody. And I know Moose Martin, you know, Jonathan Martin. He went to Stanford with me, and of course, I'm not going to judge the guy. I understand Jonathan's character and who he is as a person, and have talked to him about the situation. And you know, it just seems like it was blown out of proportion. You know, there might have been disagreements, but I'm one of those people who sits back and lets the situation play out, and then, you know, let it be who it is. If he did it, he was wrong for doing it. If he didn't do it, whatever happened, somebody was wrong. But you can't pass judgment if you don't know, if you weren't there.
But I feel like you're someone who uniquely has gone through a life in which you've been in these deep subcultures, whether it's in Stanford or whether it's a football locker room, that have their own rules, and sometimes those rules are frankly messed up. Sometimes they're the rules that get people through the day doing something very difficult, and you've kind of had to adapt yourself in those different situations.
Yeah, I've kind of had to be a chameleon of sorts, because you drive from Compton to Stanford and have to change. You have to be able to flip the switch. You know, you can't. The culture is too different to treat them both the same, and I think it's not right to treat them both the same. But I see what you're saying. I understand the culture. I understand the way a locker room is built, the way a locker room interacts with one another, and how it's really a family environment. And you know, they were saying they're like brothers and things like that, and I can understand that as well. I can understand within the locker room, you feel like the closest guys to you. In our DB corps, we call ourselves the Legion of Boom.
Yeah.
And the Cam Chancellor.
Everyone was Googling LOB the other day.
Somebody said I was talking about a gang, and I was like, LOB, Legion of Boom. That doesn't make sense to anybody.
All right, so final question is Peyton going to throw to anyone that you are on?
I'm sure he will. I'm sure he will. He's indiscriminate with who gets the ball and where he passes it. Wherever he catches his rhythm, he attacks what he feels like is a weakness of the defense. So I'm sure he'll come my way. I'm sure he'll come Earl's way. I'm sure he'll move the ball and get it to multiple receivers. It'll be a fun game.
All right, man. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
It was really a joy to sit down with Richard Sherman today. I was struck when I talked to him what he said about sound bites, particularly when it pertained to John McCain. And it's true. We live in a soundbite culture. I'm part of that. I know there are people that only know me because of sound bites. In some ways, I only know John McCain because of sound bites. So it was really extraordinary to get to sit down with Richard Sherman and see this full, complex person, or at least a little slice of this full, complex person. It also struck me how much we have very distinct, specific, preconceived mental categories for young black men. Criminal, star, A student, whatever it is. Richard Sherman is someone who kind of messes with all those, and I think that's part of what America's had a hard time with the last week. I look forward to seeing what he gets up to, not just next weekend, but after that.